Hello friends, it's Greg here again on the Blue Feather Ephemera channel. I have an eBay store by the same name where I sell vintage magazine print advertising. Today, we're going to be wrapping up the month of August. I've got 20 great ads to show you, including a couple of really nice cartoon pages that sold during the week. Let's get started. To kick us off, here's an ad that gives us an opportunity to address a couple of different things. First of all, at the top of this page, on the picture, it says Capper's Farmer for May 1940. Now, that's all of the information that a shopper would need to go and try to source this publication for themselves and harvest this ad out of it. If it's on the page, sometimes like this, I don't crop it out. Sometimes I get a message with a direct question, hey, where does this come from? And I understand that they might be trying to buy the ad cheaper by buying the whole magazine. I understand that. I grew up in hard times, and I know it's important sometimes to cut corners or pinch pennies or whatever. And so I don't lose sleep over it if it's there. The other thing that I wanted to mention about this is in each video, I'll take a moment to say that you can support the channel if you hit like, share, subscribe, leaving a comment. That boosts the video in the algorithm to get it out there to more viewers. And eventually, I may reach enough viewers that YouTube would decide to monetize the channel. That's not the goal. It's a goal, but the goal is to do something that I enjoy. And so I'm succeeding 100% in that. Another goal, is also to provide some helpful information to other sellers. And I feel like I'm doing that too, because I've established some great acquaintances with the viewers, and there's a good rapport there with a whole bunch of you that I just really enjoy. I feel like, I say it all the time, I feel like I'm learning more from you guys than you are from me. However, none of that would go on without this community of the YouTube channel. Now, let's talk about this ad. A customer decided to support me. I should say a viewer on the channel decided to support me by becoming a customer. And so Patrick down in Georgia bought this ad. That's never expected. I don't expect anybody to, go into the store and purchase ads like this. But it is helpful because, during the past 2 years, I've made somewhere between 80 and 100 videos, and each one takes about 10 hours. So I've got almost, I've got almost 1,000 hours invested in the channel to this point. That's 1,000 hours I could have been spending on the eBay store. And so that kindness is appreciated. I really do. Thank you, Patrick, for supporting me in that way as well. In the ad, towers, slickers, suits, and hats. This is the classic Gorton's Fisherman rain suit here with the slicker and the hat. But these aren't fishermen, of course, in the picture. These guys are handling a milk canister or milk can. So apparently they're on a dairy farm in the picture. But it says, give farmers and outdoor workers durable, reliable, sturdy, wet weather protection. Now, we always refer to this as foul weather gear. I would say that, sometimes fishermen or people in the Navy would call it foul weather gear. But the advertiser is Towers Fish Brand of Boston, Massachusetts, the AJ Tower Company, and I sold this ad for $7.77. Here's a really cool ad for refrigeration equipment, and the terrible pun is 100% intentional, and I apologize for that. The advertisement comes from 1967, and you're looking at the Worthington Company. Their advertisement is taking place in a meat packing plant, and you can see there that sides of beef are hanging, and there's a worker there as well. The company thinks highly of themselves. It says serving man's basic needs worldwide. And so it says they're into all types of food, water, energy, transportation, health, and sanitation. They're solving problems worldwide. And I sold this ad for $14.77. Here's a basic cigarette ad. Not an ad for Basic Cigarettes, which is an actual brand. Now this is Chesterfield is the brand, King Cigarettes, and at the top of the ad it just says these are Chesterfield people. It says they're people that just don't like filters, but they do like mild smoke. And this is not, I said it's basic because these aren't special people, these aren't celebrities. There's no incredible art on the page or nothing that really leaps out at you. These are just testimonials here. And I sold this ad for $16.77. When I titled this video, Cartoons Are Selling, I didn't even have this advertisement here in mind. Although this is a cartoon and it's a cartoon used in an advertisement, what I was actually talking about when I titled the video is that other magazine content that is not advertising. I've got some of that to show you as well. But this is cartoon in advertising. And what you see here is this husband and wife, and he is just enthralled by getting a closer look at this jet engine. And this is art. And I put the name of the artist in the title of the listing. The name is Saxon. The lady here who's giving him a boost says, "Henry, why can't we just get on the plane?" And this is a type of caricature. They're caricaturing the behavior of a typical sort of man who is mechanically inclined. He has an interest in things mechanical or technical or whatever. And this is in the early days of the jet age, and everybody sort of had a natural curiosity about how jet engines work. They're used to things like piston engines and things like that, but a fan jet engine was sort of still a new concept back at this time. American Airlines ran this ad in 1964, and I sold it for $18.77. This is the first of two advertisements that I sold that feature this actress, Diana Barrymore. Both of these ads went to the same customer. And at the top of the ad, it says there's good advice for men and women from Diana Barrymore. And in a nutshell, the good advice is don't stink. It says that she is the daughter of the great John Barrymore. Now, he was a famous actor. I think he passed away maybe back in 1942. So the earliest days of Hollywood is when he was making his movies. Now, Diana Barrymore had a brother named John Drew Barrymore, and John Drew Barrymore is the father of Drew Barrymore, who is making movies in our day and time. Actually, I think she does podcasts now, or maybe a TV show, or both, or maybe the podcast is a TV show, or vice versa. But the movie that comes to mind that I like best of hers is 50 First Dates and also The Wedding Singer. Those were good movies, in my opinion, that Drew Barrymore did. I've never seen a Diana Barrymore movie, and I may go back and try to find one to watch. But I sold this ad for $13.77. This is the second Diana Barrymore ad that went to that customer. This is about a movie called Between Us Girls, and her co-star is Robert Cummings. There's a lot of other people mentioned on the page, names with which I'm not familiar. And so if I go and search out a Diana Barrymore movie to watch, it probably won't be this one. Interesting though, this ad is from 1942, and that's the year that her father, John Barrymore, passed away. And she was only 21 at the time. It says that at the top of this page. She's all this and 21 too. A brand new, brilliant Barrymore. And so, that's a pretty tough time. She's, an actress. She's dealing with stardom. a famous father and then he passes away. I think about family dynamics like that sometimes when I look at old stuff like this. Her mother was a poet named Blanche Ulrich, Oelrich, and her mother passed away just 8 years after this. So, there's a little bit of interest and deep dive. If I get a chance to, I'll probably read more about that family just out of curiosity. But this ad sold for $16.77. Here's a nice ad that communicates some of the excitement of the dawn of the space age, and this is for RCA, and they're describing thermoelectrics, and what that is it's a way, or materials I should say, or components that convert nuclear power to useful electricity that would aid in the exploration throughout the solar system. And it says that specifically what they're showing you here is a view of Mars from the inner moon called Phobos. And so it's just an artist's rendering of what the surface of that rocky planetary body would look like as it looks toward Mars. And so kind of interesting here. The ad is beautiful, and it captures just that snapshot of history that we love in this business. And so $16.77 is what it sold for. Here's a nice ad from 1969, and every time a Volkswagen comes up, I always mention something about how self-effacing these Volkswagen ads are. They understand that they're not, a prestigious type of automobile, and so they just have a little bit of fun with that. This one says the question is how many beans are in the box? About twice as many as you'd find in a normal station wagon. Now, I think that's interesting nomenclature, because I wouldn't look at something like this and call it a station wagon. But I find it interesting that oftentimes vans are classified as trucks, vans are classified as station wagons. I've heard these things called buses. You could throw about 5 or 6 different types of descriptions at this, and every one of them would stick. I sold this one for $14.77. Here's a watch ad from 1944 that's based on an interesting concept. This is an ad for the company called Gruen, and the watch is a Curvex watch, precision instruments for war. And in the detail of the ad, the interesting concept that I mentioned is it just says that at the top, strictly speaking, precision time is the time of the stars. No watch in the world can match their perfection. And so you often see that these watches are sent to observatories for testing, and observatories award prizes to different watches that do the best in timekeeping. And that's because observatories, the measure of celestial bodies and their movements, astronomy is the whole basis for timekeeping. And so I think this is an interesting ad for that reason, and I sold this for $14.77. Here's a very basic ad, and like most of the highest end of luxury products, I guess you'd say, this ad speaks for itself. It's like Rolex, or it's like Cadillac, or things like that. The best of the best. All they don't have to work hard in their advertising. Tiffany and Company is another example. But what you see here is just a picture of the bottle. Chanel number 5, the most treasured name in perfume, Chanel. And I sold this ad for $16.77. On a local level, there's 2 major drivers of economic growth. One is to foster small business growth, and the other is to recruit large businesses into your community. And that's the purpose of this ad here. Now, I talked about that in a recent video. It may have been my very last video where I showed you an ad that was ran by Houston, Texas, and Harris County. And this one is in the same vein. What you see here is an ad that's sponsored by utility companies. And down at the bottom it says that the People's Gas Light and Coke Company and North Shore Gas Company, an affiliate, are sponsoring this ad to recruit businesses to the Chicago area. And right up in the ad it says, People's Gas will put charts, maps, data processed site and building information in your hands. And banks did this, utilities did this, railroads did this as well, maybe airlines too, but various levels of state and local government also ran recruiting ads like this. I sold this one for $14.77. Here's a nice ad from 1945. It's for Winchester Arms, and it shows a Model 61 repeating rifle, dad and son in the picture, and they're discussing shooting sports. And in the text of the ad, there's a couple of interesting things. It talks about how marksmen who began shooting at an early age were a big help during the World War II effort. Remember, this is a 1945 ad. And it also says your choice when sporting arms are again available should be a Winchester. And so that's just talking about how Winchester manufacturing went 100% toward the war effort, and there wasn't any guns available at that time for civilians, but they're looking forward to the day when they would be again. So this ad here, real nice, a lot of history, $14.77. With the sale of this ad here, my horse people have come through for me once again. I've mentioned before, I live in Kentucky, and so I see a lot of this material, and it just kind of stands out to me. I have a lot of it up for sale. This ad is for Castleton Farm of Lexington, Kentucky. Says they also have a location in Trenton, Florida. But from 1976, they're promoting their farm because they will have yearlings for sale at the Tattersall's auction at Lexington, Kentucky. That would be coming up on October the 4th after this ad ran. And they're boasting about their horse, Bonefish 3, that won the Hamiltonian race in 1975. This ad sold for $16.77. Here's a dose of deja vu for you. And the reason I say that, I sold this same exact ad probably about 2 months ago. So if you saw the video where that was highlighted, then you already know what's in here. This is an ad for the Lockheed Company. They build the Hercules transport aircraft, and in the military it's called the C-130 Hercules, but this is Southern Air Transport. They fly a civilian version of that airplane, and Southern Air Transport, in the background here, it just shows some of the products that they move with that aircraft. Of course, the pilot's standing here with it looks like a Hereford cow, I guess, but in the background there you see a side of beef and a bunch of canned goods and products for the oil fields, and everything in between is what the company moves. It says Southern Air Transport's air trucks go well with practically anything. So I guess that's a joint ad for that air transport company and Lockheed. I sold this ad for $18.77. When you're a company with more than 100 years under your belt, you have a history of advertising that you can draw upon, and a lot of mascots and slogans and logos and iconography and just everything in the world. And you see some of that crammed into this advertisement for Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad from 1936. You've got America's Sleepheart here. That's the little toddler here. You've got the children saying their bedtime prayers, and you've got the sleeping kitten named Chessie. And it says that you've got George Washington's Railroad. That's a slogan they used. Also, sleep like a kitten and arrive fresh as a daisy. And they're talking about the 1939 calendar, and these prints can be had for a quarter. It said in the previous year that hundreds of customers were not able to receive their prints that they requested because the return address was not written legibly, and so they couldn't mail prints out to some people who paid for them. Anyway, just very interesting history here, and nice prints, cool art, 2 pages, full size. I sold this for $28.77. From 1957, this ran in Sports Illustrated magazine, and it's an advertisement for Titleist golf balls made by the company called Acushnet of New Bedford, Massachusetts. And you can buy personalized golf balls in quantities of 6 or 12 that come in the presentation case, and it has the name of your golfer on there. It says be sure to include the name of your golf pro so they get credit for the sale. And I sold this for $9.77. This is an ad that I sold for $34.77. It could easily have been an ad that I sold for $14, $16, $18. Why did I raise the price? I priced it higher because I did some research on it that helped me figure out that it's scarce and it fits into a certain niche. Coca-Cola has a lot of collectors, but Coca-Cola ads are common. What I feel helped me achieve a better price on this ad is that I was able, through analyzing the picture, I was able to figure out some sort of specific things about it. In the picture, you've got this plane that's flying. It has 4 engines and 2 vertical stabilizers on the tail. Now, I figured that they're showing the same planes here. You're under an engine right here, but here is a plane with 2 engines on one wing, just like the one flying. I feel like if you could see to the end of this plane that's on the ground, you would see that it also has twin vertical stabilizers on the tail. Now, what kind of World War II aircraft had 4 engines and twin vertical stabilizers? Well, a B-24 Liberator bomber airplane does, and I could have went with that, but you know, I've talked about B-24s being the workhorse of the bomber kind of mission for World War II, but at the same time, it's a sexier kind of thing if you've got a plane dropping bombs. Now, if you've got an aircraft that's moving cargo, it's just as important as dropping bombs, but it's not as sexy, and so you don't see as much visual artwork and things like that associated with that job. There were a lot more pilots moving cargo than there were pilots dropping bombs during World War II, though, so you had a larger community of pilots and maintenance people and things like that associated with transport aircraft. Now, the cargo version of the B-24 Liberator was called the C-87, also called the Liberator, but they added Express. So it was the C-87 Liberator Express that moved cargo like this. And that's what these guys are doing. Now, the other clues that I saw were the emblem on the side of the plane here. You see the top of a globe and what appears to be some kind of a abstract bird, if you want to call it that, an abstract eagle or something like that. And that same emblem is on the patch of this pilot right here, talking to these fellows who are probably Portuguese or Moroccan or something like that. But obviously, those guys with anchors on the collar are probably Navy or around some kind of water or something like that. Anyway, a lot of interesting things going on in the pictures, but because this is transport planes and not bombers, and because I can attribute the patch to the Air Transport Command, I priced this up at $34.77, and it sold within about 12 hours. That last ad was a World War II era ad, and this cartoon and the next one are both World War II era also. Both of these cartoons come from Esquire magazine. This first one, I don't recognize the signature of the artist, but I really enjoyed the cartoon. It made me laugh, and I don't list a lot of cartoons. That's why it kind of stands out to me when I do, is because I see a lot of cartoons in magazines. They'll make me grin. I might chuckle or something like that. But now, if I really laugh out loud, that's a cartoon that I've got to list. And this is one of those. You've got Mama Indian and Papa Indian, and they're sitting here outside of the TP, and they're proudly displaying their service star, which shows that they have a family member, I'm assuming a son, in the military fighting in World War II. And she's reading a letter that she got from him, and down there in the caption it says, he says he got the Tomahawk and it works great. And so I think that's really funny. You also have an Indian in the background, and they've got a baby on a cradle board on their back, which is kind of an iconic image there. And I'll mention this as well. I tried to record this, and I wanted to use the terminology that I grew up knowing for that. And it's just surprising to me that you can't say some things anymore. And so this is like my 6th or 8th take, because apparently I'm I need to be more sensitive to cultural sensibilities, I guess. But anyway, being careful to note that this is a type of a caricature, and caricatures can be derogatory. I see nothing derogatory or offensive here. I don't think it would have been in 1944 or in 2025. And my apologies to anybody if it's not, but it does have historical significance and value. And so I'm proud to show it in the video. And I sold this for $21.77. Here's the second cartoon, and I guess technically the third if you count that American Airlines cartoon advertisement, but we're talking strictly non-advertising content for the purposes of this discussion, so we'll just say the second cartoon. In this cartoon, I've titled it Soldier Meets Mother-in-Law, and the art is by E. Sims Campbell. We'll talk more about him in just a moment, but in the details of this cartoon, you can see here that he's sitting with his South Pacific, I guess you'd say Polynesian bride, and he's meeting his mother-in-law, and she says, "You may call me mother if you like." And you can tell there by the look on his face, he's just kind of sort of shocked by the situation. She's a rather imposing figure, and I just thought that was funny, and so I put this up for sale. Now, E. Sims Campbell, you see his signature right here. Interesting guy, and in recent months I've learned more about him because you see his artwork everywhere. And he got his first major contracts to furnish illustrations in 1933, working for Esquire magazine. And over the course of years, he created the Esky character for Esquire magazine. And he also did illustrations for Playboy and Cosmopolitan and Life magazines as well. In 2002, he was inducted into the Society of Illustrators Hall of Fame, and he was the first African American to be regularly featured in major publications in syndication. And so that's just a very cool piece of history right there, and I wanted to share that with you. This cartoon sold for $14.77. Okay, to summarize this week of sales, August the 26th to September the 1st of 2025, I sold 20 ads for $338.40. That's gross revenue from the sales, and my net income right at $130. Now, in comparison with recent months, 20 ads is about average, as is the gross revenue that I derive from that. However, net income is down somewhat because of the free shipping policy test that I'm doing. And if you've been following that, we've got just a couple of weeks of that left, and I'll be doing a major recap of that trial here in about 3 weeks. Like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. And as always, feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you, even if it's just a friendly hello. Bye for now.